Online live.
Hello everyone, this is Kana and I'm live. So you can watch it right now in Kana Storyteller, guys. This is awesome being live. So anyways, let's not continue the live talking. Today we are doing Dinosaur Evolution. So this is just part 1 of Dinosaur Evolution. We will do more of this Dinosaur Evolution. So let's get started. Subscribe and like before we get started. Guys, I see my subscribers and half of you, all of you who watch, like not 60, so except the 62 subscribers, everyone that watches my videos don't subscribe. Just subscribe, guys. You just think and I will say thank you in the comment below. Just tell what's your name. So anyways, I'm live. Hey, I'm flying around. Okay. Let's put ourselves. Okay guys, why is that voice coming from? Stop it. Okay, anyways, let's get started.
The dinosaurs appeared out of the ashes of a mass extinction.
Okay,
the Great Dying that marked. Like many
I don't
animals
know.
that came to dominate certain time periods, the dinosaurs appeared out of the ashes of a mass extinction.
I'm gonna just
The Great Dying that marked the end of the Permian and the beginning of the Triassic. Among many of these bizarre experiments of evolution that were common in the Triassic was a tiny advanced carnivore that would eventually go on to dominate the Earth for the next 160 million years.
and then I will talk in the next one.
It is common knowledge that the dinosaurs first appeared in the Triassic, but they were actually not seen until almost halfway through the period. The
Okay,
Triassic was filled with very strange
yeah.
animals like the tree-dwelling drepanosaurs, or the reverse
Okay. So I'm gonna talk after this because you don't get disturbed. So
pterosaur, Charovipteryx.
let's go.
However, the dominating animals in the early Triassic were advanced reptiles known as archosaurs.
Yeah, they were.
These creatures had actually existed since the late Permian, but were obscure and rarely seen. In the Triassic, they rose up and took control as the dominant predatory animals, as well as occupying some herbivorous niches. The reasons for their success is usually attributed to the conditions that were left over from the Permian extinction. Oxygen levels were low in the early stages, and conditions were primarily arid throughout the Triassic. It is thought that the archosaurs had more advanced respiratory systems than many other animals of the time, and were better at conserving water. These unique and invaluable tools allowed them to become the most feared predators of the early Triassic. Quite soon after their first appearance, the archosaurs split into two groups, the Pseudotsuchia and the Ornithodira. The Pseudotsuchia group contained animals that would eventually evolve into crocodiles, and the Ornithodira group contained animals that would eventually evolve into dinosaurs. But at this time in their history, you would find it very difficult to distinguish them, as the crocodile group were behaving very strangely for crocodiles, like occasionally walking on two legs, or sometimes even being herbivorous. If you travelled back to the early Triassic and were eaten, chances are you wouldn't know if you were eaten by a crocodile or a dinosaur. The most common way in which paleontologists tell these two groups apart is by their ankles. Pseudotsuchia had a greater range of motion in their ankles, as many of them had limbs sprawled out to their sides, and others were able to transition from a sprawl into a more upright position if need be. Ornithodirans, on the other hand, had ankles that only really allowed them to move their feet on a single plane, which gave them much more stability while running up.
Okay, that was a crocodile on the road. I'm pausing it so you don't get disturbed when I'm talking. So it said, there's two things, Orthorhynchia and Pothorhynchia. One of them, Pothorhynchia, I think, is the dinosaur one, and the Orthorhynchia is the crocodile. Let's just check that. I'm gonna check. So the dinosaurs is Orthorhynchia and the other one is a Pothorhynchia. And let's continue.
Single plane, which gave them much more stability while running upright, especially while moving at speed. This adaptation may have been important in allowing the most derived forms to become permanent bipeds and to become more dinosaur-like.
Crocodiles.
And different groups seem to have evolved to spend at least some of their time on two legs independently. This move towards bipedalism among these dinosaur ancestors was probably driven due to the different bills these animals had. They had stronger and very muscular tails. Also, their bodies moved more easily side to side. So the most efficient form of locomotion while moving at speed may have been on 2 legs. This is an adaptation being copied by some lizards today, that while moving at speed opt to run on their hind legs.
A lizard.
The ornithodirians are also thought to contain pterosaurs, which would have diverged away from this group just before they started to look very dinosaur-like.
Wow.
Animals like marsupials, for instance, looked like small theropod dinosaurs and were probably permanently bipedal, but these animals still have some primitive features. Acyllosaurus still had long forelimbs showing their quadrupedal ancestry.
That's the first
These
dinosaur.
animals looked a lot like small
No
theropods,
notifications
however,
in
do
my.
not meet the current definition of dinosaur and are named dinosauromorphs, the closest relatives of the dinosaurs. Over the years, the animals that hold the title dinosaur has actually changed quite a bit, as our understanding of what these creatures were and how the world works has improved significantly. When pioneering paleontologists first started to study their fossils, important concepts such as deep time, extinction, and even evolution were only just starting to take hold. Dinosaurs were thought to be any
Another one.
like animal that lived a long time ago, and as more prehistoric animals were being discovered, a word with this definition would have been stretched into uselessness. The definition most commonly used today is the common ancestor of the 2 major dinosaur groups, Saurischia and Ornithischia, and all their descendants. This is because the iguanodon was an Ornithischia, and the Megalosaurus was a Saurischia, which were both the first dinosaurs ever named by Richard Owen, who coined the word dinosaur.
Then what in the world?
The most likely candidate for this common ancestor, and therefore the probable first dinosaur, is believed to be Eoraptor, that lived over 230 million years ago. Dinosaurs may have appeared as early as 243 million years ago, evidenced by the remains of Nyasasaurus, although this creature is only known from fragmentary remains, so it is difficult to know if it was indeed a dinosaur or just a dinosauromorph. So the earliest dinosaurs were small, sometimes tiny bipedal carnivores, and were far from the dominant group of animals or even predatory animals. Their habitats were largely populated by various types of archosaurs, the dominant carnivores still being the Pseudotsuchia, that were more successful than dinosaurs well past the mid-Triassic. Adding to this, most early dinosaurs were around the size of a small dog, whereas some Pseudotsuchians like the Saurosuchus were 7 meters long, however could have been even larger, with upper estimates of 8 or 9 meters. The dinosaurs were not dominating herbivore niches either, but their niches were not being filled by archosaurs and instead were largely being occupied by the same creatures as before the Permian extinction, synapsids. These were ancient creatures with an ancestry dating back to 300 million years ago, and were not reptiles at all, but actually distant mammal relatives. A group of these animals called Dicynodonts had diversified into many species and were the most common large herbivores of their time
I
by
think
far.
they're getting disturbed.
However, this would start to change about 230 million years ago with the appearance of small dinosaurs that, unlike their predecessors, were adapted to eat plants. One of these individuals was about the size of a large dog,
Wanna go
called
up here?
Chromegasaurus, that would have lived
I
in the
don't
shadow
want
of
you
these
guys to
cow-sized
get
Dicynodonts.
disturbed by
These
my.
creatures were actually the ancestors of the largest land animals ever, the sauropods. These
What?
sauropod ancestors would start to reach large sizes by the end of the
Okay,
Triassic,
the
although
Jurassic
nothing
has
compared to their
started.
gargantuan Jurassic proportions.
Mhm.
Some of these animals, like Plateosaurus, could already reach lengths of 10 meters by the end of the Triassic, when they would start replacing the Dicynodonts as the dominant herbivores. Most Triassic habitats around the world were monopolized by the large Pseudotsuchians. About 230 million years ago, in what is modern-day South America, a group of dinosaurs called Heterosaurids first appeared. This group were among some of the first dinosaurs, and some members like Heterosaurus, that the family is named after, were some of the first large predatory dinosaurs, reaching lengths of about 6 meters. This predator would have had a much lighter build than some of the large Pseudotsuchians, but would have been faster and more agile, some of the key dinosaurian advantages. True change came in the form of another mass extinction that occurred 200 million years ago, marking the boundary between the Triassic and Jurassic periods. The Triassic-Jurassic extinction event is lesser known than some of the others, but was actually quite bad, killing off as much as 30% of
The
animals.
settings.
The majority of the old reptiles, the Pseudotsuchians and the Dicynodonts, were wiped out, leaving a land fauna of dinosaurs, pterosaurs, turtles, and small mammals. This extinction event was caused by increasing volcanic activity, and unfortunately why the dinosaurs survived while lots of the other groups did not is still poorly understood. However, it is very plausible that their highly efficient bird-like lungs may have helped them during lower oxygen levels. Although this extinction event was important to dinosaur evolution, it was not analogous to the KT extinction event that wiped out the dinosaurs, allowing the mammals to rise up, where mammals were for the most part tiny or nocturnal, living in the shadow of dinosaurs, and then in the blink of an eye were able to colonize many new habitats. Some Triassic dinosaurs like Coelophysis are known from hundreds of fossils and were one of the most numerous prehistoric animals in the fossil record. Dinosaurs were common and successful animals by the end of the Triassic. This extinction event just made a common group of animals become nearly every land animal larger than a cat. The extinction event did seal the fate of the Pseudotsuchians, or at least the ones that hunted on land. One group of Pseudotsuchians still remain dominant in their habitat of freshwater rivers and lakes past the extinction, and unlike the non-avian dinosaurs, they still survive today. These, of course, were the ancestors of crocodiles. A massive thank you goes to Fossilworth, David Vanderost, Karim, and all my other patrons for their support. If you would like to support me as well, then you can go to Patreon and make a pledge. If you like the video and would like to be updated of future content, then consider subscribing. Thank you for watching.
Yeah. I'm still checking. So
Here's the easiest way to learn how to play the piano. Step 1. Download Simply Piano.
a minute, guys. Come on, just a moment.
Right now, paleontologists discover a new
Here-
species of dinosaur
Here
every
is
week.
the
And
next.
it's no wonder. Dinosaurs dominated the planet for 135 million years,
Yeah.
but they didn't start out on top.
Yeah. Now
The first
dino-
dinosaurs emerged around 230 million years ago during the Triassic
In the
period.
world that
Then,
old.
Earth was
Jurassic
very
period.
different.
This is the next
Instead of 7
video.
continents, there was just one, Pangea.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
Even
Pangea,
early
the
dinosaurs were nothing like
super
those Hollywood
continent
giants.
Pangea.
Eoraptor,
all the
possibly the
cow-
first true
continent
dinosaur, was
that
puny,
all the seven
especially
continents
compared to
just
top
stick into
predators of the day, like some of the giant Rasuchians.
one. Yeah.
Over the next 30 million years,
Dinosaur
new
is
species of dinosaurs and
Stegosaurus
amphibians developed, along
what's
with
that?
the first
Okay.
mammals.
Oh, that's
Life
too
was
much.
flourishing. Then, 201 million years ago, everything changed.
Yeah.
Pangea began to tear apart.
Yep.
The shifting
Pangea is a
tectonic
super
plates sparked
continent
volcanic eruptions,
that at every
which,
continent.
over tens of thousands of years, tripled the amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere and warmed the planet by 3 to 4 degrees Celsius.
That's
It vanquished at least 30% of all life in the process. But for
I
some
can't
reason,
hear anything.
maybe luck or some helpful adaptation, the dinosaurs sailed on through to the dawn of the Jurassic period. And over the next 135 million years, they continue to spread,
Let's go,
diversify, and evolve into some familiar faces.
Yep.
For example,
From
the first
familiar-
tyrannosaurs sprouted up sometime around 170 million years ago.
What?
But don't get your hopes up.
That?
These guys were no T-Rex.
Your
The real
T-Rex.
sovereign of the era was the Allosaurus. It
Yeah.
dined on sauropods with its meat cleaver teeth. Meanwhile, Pangea continued to pull apart. By 145 million years ago, it began to resemble what we see today, forming isolated pockets where dinosaurs grew increasingly different. It was the heyday of dinosaur diversity and a new period, the Cretaceous.
Yeah.
In
Oh, the
Argentina, giants like the Tagotitan, the
Jurassic
biggest dinosaur on record,
one, and now
turned up around 100 million years ago. But the most frightening of all appeared in the western US around 68 million years ago. T. rex, the largest carnivore
all your
in history.
favorite.
On its own, it was a formidable
Every
predator.
dinosaur is my fan.
But it turns out the
They
T-Rex
can-
likely
that
hunted in
it can
packs.
also die.
And where T-Rex did not
But it
roam,
has-
other
only
pack
for
hunters filled the
70
niche.
years.
In Asia, the small yet cunning velociraptor
Yes, I-
roamed. It was a bad time to be a mammal. And then, 66 million years ago, the Chicxulub asteroid wiped out all the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Well, almost all of them.
Yep.
One group remained. Their descendants might be sitting outside your window right now. Birds. That's right, modern birds are dinosaurs. Turns out, the legacy of these titans today is, well, dinner. This video was made in large part thanks to Steve Brasati and the information in his new book, The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs.
Yep.
What interesting dinosaur facts do you want to know about? Let us know in the comments.
Yeah. don't need these. Like someone saying, guys, someone saying that did dinosaurs really get extinct? Dude, Jurassic Park, he's an idiot in movies. They are toys, dude. Yeah. Why is the voice coming, dude? Why is the voice coming? Just stop it. I don't like voices. I really don't want voices right now. Yep. We are going to do the timeline of these, I guess, reptile lizards. Because these are lizards. Mesozoic. Yeah, it's Mesozoic. First comes okay. So today we are going to get out of this pin area. So let's see. Yeah. Okay. Just. So now let's watch this little video that they gave.
Hello, could you please help me?
It's the 10 minutes video.
A long time ago, dinosaurs roamed the earth. They lived, they hunted, they killed, and they ruled. Then the earth was struck by an asteroid about the size of Rhode Island, and they were wiped out. This allowed mammals to rise, and with mammals came human beings. However, what was the Earth like before dinosaurs ruled, and what caused them to disappear? In this video, we're going to explore the strange creatures that ruled the Earth long before the dinosaurs took their first steps. We're going to meet giant insects and terrifying arthropods, as well as some of humanity's earliest relatives. Brontoscorpio. Before the age of reptiles, when dinosaurs ruled the earth, it was the age of arthropods. Some arthropods still survive to this day, including spiders, lobsters, centipedes, shrimps, scorpions, and insects. However, in this prehistoric time before dinosaurs, these arthropods weren't as we know them today. No, they were gigantic. For instance, take a look at the Brontoscorpio, which is what it sounds like. A giant scorpion. Modern scorpions are an average of just 4 inches or 11 centimeters long. But the Brontoscorpio is 10 times bigger at just over 3 feet or 1 meter. If you were to encounter one, they would have no trouble at all stinging you in the thigh or maybe even your resting hands. They were so large that molting was difficult, requiring a trip to the water where they spent a fair amount of their time. To survive the long trips in the water, the Brontoscorpio not only had lungs, but also a set of gills. Because the scorpion could retreat to the land, it could avoid one of the only marine predators, such as the Pterygotus. Pterygotus. Although it lacks the venom that the Brontoscorpio had, the Pterygotus was a sea scorpion so big that it could eat the Brontoscorpio no problem. It measured in at nearly 10 feet or 3 meters, making it around the size of the present-day alligator. The Pterygotus weighed so much it wasn't able to actively hunt its prey, but instead it hid in wait for the prey to approach. At the last minute, it would violently shoot its massive claws out and crush its food in its incredibly strong grip. No wonder the Brontoscorpio hid on dry land. Unfortunately, dry land held its own group of predators lurking around in this prehistoric time. Giant ants. Just like you'll find all over present-day Earth, there were insects back then too. Ants roamed the supercontinent. However, these ants were quite different than you're likely to see today. Before dinosaurs lived the biggest ants to ever have existed, each being over an inch long. It may not seem massive at first, but they lived in large colonies with swarms that devastated the prehistoric landscape. The colony's queen had wings and was comparable in size to a hummingbird. Paleontologists and other researchers theorize that these giant ants probably spit acid and only consumed fresh food, possibly having a diet consisting only of meat. If that was the case, they may have formed swarms to hunt and butchered much larger prehistoric animals. If you're not scared yet, just close your eyes and imagine thousands of hungry giant ants surrounding you, each one capable of spraying acid. Not a pretty picture. Meganeuropsis. Giant insects didn't just litter the ground, but they also flew through the skies. Take, for instance, the Meganeuropsis, which was the largest insect to ever live. It looked like a dragonfly, but multiple times bigger, with a wingspan of up to 2.5 feet. It was similar in size to a falcon and was one of the most effective flying hunters ever known. It can catch prey 95% of the time, had an unparalleled brain, eye, and wing coordination. Although its main diet were other flying insects, the Meganeuropsis had the capability of hunting and eating creatures as large as dogs. Labyrinthodontia. Even though the Earth at this time was dominated by arthropods and insects, we actually saw a sneak preview of the very first reptiles and amphibians. For instance, as some of the bony fish evolved, their fins turned into flippers, which then became legs, which allowed them to transition out of the water and onto land. This early group of amphibians were known as Labyrinthodontia, with very distinct teeth and thick, heavy skulls. These creatures actually looked quite similar to crocodiles in both size and appearance. These fearsome creatures would lurk in shallow waters along the shores, just like amphibians today. They would lie in wait for creatures to get near and would snap their powerful jaws around the prey. Due to its great size and strength, the Labyrinthodontia would take down and consume animals the size of cows. Arthropleura. Some of the creatures of this time were much more strange and unique than crocodiles and dragonflies. There were some real nightmares creeping around the prehistoric Earth. For instance, millipedes are already creepy when they're just a few inches long. However, millipedes of this ancient era were 40 times bigger, making them 6.5 feet long. That's just about the size of an average NBA player. This terrifying millipede was called Arthropleura, and the biggest on record was over 8 feet long. This makes them the biggest invertebrates that have ever existed. When they were first discovered, no fossils of their mouths were recovered, which led to wild speculation as to the diet of the giant millipede. Because paleontologists have discovered fossilized plants in the guts of arthropods.
Watch your favorite Ninja
Thank you. Ad came because I would buff.
Pleura.
From
We
this.
now believe these giant millipedes were probably herbivores that fed on plant life and had very few natural predators.
Oh,
Ancient human ancestors.
yay!
Ancient humans believed that life was capable of spontaneously generating. Modern science has dispelled that myth and discovered that all existing life is from something else. For
3 times humans have covered Earth. First is right now you told, then the Stone Age, and now our age.
instance, dogs and foxes and wolves all descended from a common ancestor. Likewise, humans and apes share a common ancestor. It stands to reason that somewhere back in time of the dinosaurs and time before the dinosaurs, there must have been some ancient human relatives. It's true, although the first mammal wouldn't be born until the age of the dinosaurs, and mammals wouldn't rule the Earth for another 250 million years. We did have some ancestors back then. Shortly after the first reptile evolved, it split into 2 distinct groups, sauropsids and synapsids. Sauropsids would later become dinosaurs, modern reptiles, and birds. Synapsids is the group that would become mammals, including primates and humans. So what were these synapsids? What did our ancient family look like? Dimetrodon and Gorgonopsid. One example of an ancient relative was the Dimetrodon.
Our
This animal was nearly
our
10
ancient ancestors are dinosaurs. That's our ancient ancestor is dinosaurs. Wow.
feet long, or 3 meters, and looks a lot how you'd imagine a dinosaur. Its skin is reptilian, and it even had a large crest like you'd see on a stegosaurus or a spinosaurus. However, this thing is actually one of the first synapsids, making him our distant cousin. Because Dimetrodon was cold-blooded, it gained all of the body heat from the environment. It would use the large sail-like crest to absorb additional sunlight. Probably the most familiar-looking animal of this time was another early cousin to our ancestors, the terrifying Gorgonopsid. It looked like a mix between a reptile and a saber-toothed tiger. Its 2-foot-long skull held a pair of long canine teeth. It was around the size of a modern tiger and between 5 to 10 feet long. These early creatures didn't survive on insects like most other animals in this video. They instead ate other synapsids and other types of reptiles. Biodiversity. Before the dinosaurs, the world was filled with massive, interesting, and dangerous creatures. Earth's Paleozoic era saw the most intense explosion of biodiversity ever recorded in the universe. The great size of the animals was due to the atmosphere having a higher oxygen content, which enabled tremendous growth across all animals. In addition to the creatures we've already talked about, there are hundreds of other notable creatures. The Dunkleosteus was an ancient fish with a thick skull that swam in.
Yeah, I know that. It's from Feed and Grow Fish. That's. How did I know that? Because I watch videos.
Teeth. Even more deadly was the Hyneria, the world's first super predator to 10 feet long. These early creatures didn't survive on insects like most other animals in this video. They instead ate other synapsids and other types of reptiles. Biodiversity. Before the dinosaurs, the world was filled with massive, interesting, and dangerous creatures. Earth's Paleozoic era saw the most intense explosion of biodiversity ever recorded in the universe. The great size of the animals was due to the atmosphere having a higher oxygen content, which enabled tremendous growth across all animals. In addition to the creatures we've already talked about, there are hundreds of other notable creatures. The Dunkleosteus was an ancient fish with a thick skull that swam in waters, stretching up to 20 feet long. There was the Heliocorprion, an ancient shark that existed before the Megalodon, with strange spiraled teeth. Even more deadly was the Hyneria, the world's first super predator. It was 8 to 12 feet long and could use their fins to make their way up on the shore in a very similar way to orcas.
Fish made dinosaurs, so they're megas. They're mega animals.
Although this era was filled with such amazing creatures, they're not around anymore. So what happened to it all? Where did these animals go? And what caused them to die out, handing the Earth over to the dinosaurs? Meteor strike. The dinosaurs went extinct when an asteroid hit the Earth 66 million years ago. But this wasn't the first time a whole group of animals went extinct at once. In fact, another extinction event led to the downfall of the arthropods and freed up the Earth for dinosaurs to take over. It happened 252 million years ago, and it was the greatest extinction event ever. Rather than an asteroid, there were at least 3 separate pulses or phases of extinction, and we're not really sure what caused each one. All we know is that over 90% of all living creatures were wiped out. The best theories about the end of this period are a mix of meteor strikes, volcanic eruptions, and global climate change. Without this triple threat of ecological disasters, we might still have giant centipedes, dragonflies, and ants crawling around the Earth today. We hope you enjoyed this video. Please share, like, and comment what your favorite part was. If you like the video, then make sure to click the subscribe button so you'll be the first to know when we release a new video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, do that.
Here's the easiest way to learn how to play the piano. Step 1. Download Simply Piano.
Guys, subscribe and like before we get started. What is behind me? Oh, that's the finger. subscribe and like before we get started. Before we go, subscribe and like. And remember, this is live, so you can watch it right now. And bye bye, guys. Subscribe and like. Stay home, stay healthy. Bye bye.